And we are live. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Dialogues About Death show with your host, Chris Miller. How are you, Chris?
Good morning, Mary, and happy Memorial Day weekend to everybody. And really, before we get started, it's Memorial Day is not really a happy weekend. It's a day that we memorialize all of our veterans, our men and women that serve our country. And it's a day that they've sacrificed everything to give us the freedoms that we have here today. So I want to just bless everybody and have a blessed and safe Memorial Day weekend.
I love that. And it's true. We do memorialize and thank those who gave their life for our freedom. And if you're watching today and you have someone who died in the line of service, we would love you to put that in the comments because we would like to honor them as well because we wouldn't be here for not their
we'll do a shout out to your loved one today.
Exactly. Well, Chris, we have an exciting show today. Yes. It is the topic today is how to help mom through a crisis. And I think a lot of us are dealing with this. We are kind of the sandwich generation where we are not only raising up our kids, but also taking care of our parents. You still have your mom. Is there anything that you deal with in regards to that? I mean, she's very active.
I do. Just what we do is my mom, being in her early 80s, she has periodic doctor's appointments and healthcare things. So between me and my sister, we're always there to kind of help her out and support her and get her to her appointment stuff. She's still a really active senior. My mom, even though she's in her early 80s, she is still driving and she's still alert and ready to go. But as time goes on, everybody tends to slow down a little bit. And so we're there just to support mom whenever she needs us. And we're fortunate that we still have our mom, and hopefully we're here today to let others know that we're here to support you too.
That's awesome. Yeah, we have an exciting guest that we're going to be bringing on in a couple of minutes. But before we do, I want to do a couple of housekeeping things. We actually have our next show scheduled for June 20th. So make sure you mark that on your calendars, which is our monthly Dialogue About Death show, which is going to be fun. And today we actually have a guest that is an expert in helping our parents through a crisis.
Yes.
His name is Ken Kuck, and I'm going to bring you up, Ken. And you and Chris are going to have an amazing conversation today. We have so many questions that have come in that are really diving deep into dealing with parent issues and helping them, give them the respect and honor that they deserve, and how to take care of them when they are having a crisis. So let's bring up Ken.
Great.
Yay!
Hey, good morning, Ken.
Good morning. How are we?
Oh, I'm doing well, Ken. Thanks for joining me and being part of my show. I've been really excited and looking forward to this day that we can kind of come together and share how you can help people before they actually have to see me, because you're part of the transition, really, and it's really an important part in a lot of our families that have their parents still alive. We're always kind of looking on how they can transition. And I know you and your wife, Anna, are great support here in our community, and you help a lot of people in their transition. You really help seniors, if they have a fall or if they need transition and downsizing their homes and things like that. So I'm just looking forward today. Ken and I, we go back many years. Our kids have grown up together in school. We're fellow Rotarians. And we used to walk together years ago. We used to have early morning walks, and we used to have some great times and really vet each other and really be sounding boards to each other in our businesses. And I kind of miss those years. But here's a day that we can reconnect live and hopefully share some of our stories and enlighten other people here in our community and around Southern California to help their parents when they're needed. So, Ken, thank you for being here this morning.
Well, thanks for having me today.
Well, I'm going to go off screen, and Ken, I want you to begin the show by just telling people, as you said, Chris said, you're here in our community. Tell us a little bit about Synergy and why did you decide to take on this? This is a very unique career and calling, and I love to let people know what you do, why you do it, and why you have it here in Corona.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good. So Synergy Home Care is part of a national franchise system. And so we started this business about 15 years ago. I was in staffing, and I decided to leave the staffing world and joined Synergy Home Care, opened our business 15 years ago, and it's been a thriving business ever since. So we've got about 70 employees here in the Inland Empire area that service couple hundred families. I think we've serviced over 1,000 families over the last 15 years, as a matter of fact, which is kind of crazy.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
That's awesome, Ken.
So,
well, hey, let's dive in this morning with a couple questions. We've got a couple questions that have been brought to us that hopefully you can answer and hopefully shed a little light on some of these things. So our first question this morning, Ken, is how do you deal with your caregiver's guilt?
Caregiver's guilt. So caregivers can be a number of different people. Generally, it's a family member. A lot of times we deal with families that come to us and it's the first time they've had some sort of crisis. You've got somebody that, like last night, I had a good friend of mine. He called me in the car on his way over to his dad's house. Dad just had major surgery, heart surgery. Hospital discharged him too soon. They sent him home and they said, well, get some assistance. So he calls me, what am I supposed to do here? And that a lot of times is the same situation we have with most of our clients. They'll call us because they don't know what to do. They have a family member that ends up in the hospital, slip or a fall or surgery that happens. And they're people in my age group, Chris's age group, and they'll call the office or they'll call me up and say, hey, look, what do we need to do? Because the hospital didn't give us a lot of direction. They gave us a couple names to call, but I'm not sure what we need to do. How's this get paid for? I work all day long. I have kids I got to take care of. How am I supposed to take care of mom or dad at home and be able to still do my job and take care of my own kids? So yes, there's a little bit of guilt that happens with that because now all of a sudden they're put in a position where maybe it's a little challenging for them to figure this out and they have to navigate it by figuring out how to pay for it. Because at the end of the day, it's something that Medicare doesn't pay for. Their health insurance doesn't pay for. It's a very expensive thing if the family's not prepared for it. The family needs to look at that option before it becomes a crisis.
So is an option like I've heard of like long-term care insurance? Is that something that's what it would cover, like your type of
services? It would cover it, yeah. So a lot of times people, Chris, you're my age, be looking at as an option, maybe taking on some long-term care because when we get to that spot, you can't get it. And so when you need to have it, it's not something you can actually go out and buy. So it's something you want to actually have because it gives you options. I never want to put my kids in a position where they're going to be the ones having to change my diaper and take care of me and feed me and stuff. I'd much rather them be there, be present with me as a family member instead of being there taking care of me situationally. So it's good to have options. And long-term care kind of allows for that by giving you a choice where you can get care, whether it's in your home or whether it's living inside an assisted living community. So,
all right, great. Hey, I've got another question here for you.
Sure.
When should mom recognize the need for extra assistance? And maybe it's really, when does the family really make that? Because do you got to how do you break the news to mom? I think you need some extra help, or dad, you need some extra help.
You know, it's interesting. I know you talked about your mom a little bit, so I'll give you a couple stories here. So my wife, Anna, her mom, she passed away about 2 weeks ago. But prior to that, it was interesting because she was 95, but she was in her mid 80s and she was making the decision to move into a community setting, which is like an assisted living, independent living community for seniors. And it took her, I want to say 4 visits over a year. Same thing, coming out, visiting, looking at the property. She just couldn't pull the trigger. It became a health crisis when she had a pulmonary embolism to when she made that decision to move. My parents, mid 80s, same house, 50 years. We moved them about a month and a half ago after 50 years of being in the same home. You know, dad had a couple health things going on. Mom, I don't want to be in a position where we're in the house and something happens to your father and I have to run this house by myself. She didn't want to do that. So I think a lot of conversations, frank conversations, and just being patient with your loved one is kind of the best thing to do because honestly, you don't want to force the issue. There's nothing worse than forcing your family member to move into a community setting when they're not ready for it. I think but it's important to do it before there's a health crisis. I always tell families, get care or assistance ahead of time or make that move ahead of time because you want to be in the position where you're in the community. If that's what you're going to do, you're living there, you've made some connections, some friends, you're familiar with the property, you've got a support system in there. You don't want to do it when it's a health crisis that's happened. Now, all of a sudden, now you have to move, and you're moving in a stressful situation, and you don't have the support system there when you do it. So one of the great ways to do that or get prepared for it is getting home care at the house too.
I have a follow-up question to that. So when you were like having your parents downsize into that apartment, did you go visit places in the area? Because I know they live in Orange County, and so there's certain areas that are better than others, and certain have better services that they offer. So what was that like? Did you take them out to visit, or did they say no? One day they just saw it online on a website. How did that kind of work?
Well, in their case, it was they had some friends in a community, but they did visit. And I went with them on several of the visits to different communities. And there's different things you're looking for because there's a lot of different models out there for where you can move into. So there's certain models that have what they call stage living. You could be living independently. You can move then to assisted living or even to a skilled nursing setting, depending on what's going on with you at that time. There's other communities that are smaller communities. There's facilities that are called board and cares in the neighborhood, a little smaller. They're a little more intimate, but they're really kind of designed for people that are getting close to passing. And it's more of an economical choice for some families in that situation. So, but yeah, we did go out and look at places, did do the tours, made sure they felt comfortable in that environment, which was important. So
Sure. That kind of leads me to my next question. It says, are there differences in in-home care options? So when people are looking for services that you offer, are there like different levels of service or different types of service?
Well, I think there's different home care agencies that make them different. I mean, for us, we do some things that some of our competitors don't do. I mean, I will tell you, like we drug screen our care staff members. In the state of California, all the home care agencies that are licensed legally, and that happened about 8 years ago, we have to FBI, DOJ background check every single one of those employees. We have to reference check. We reference check, and there's a certain amount of training that has to occur with them. But we also take a couple steps further. We do a little more deep reference checking and then drug testing as well to make sure we have the right person coming to your home is what it is. And we make sure they got the right training and level of training to come into the house. But different levels of care. For us, when we come in to talk to a family, do what's called an assessment. We come and visit with the family. We're doing a couple things. We're sitting down with the family to kind of meet you, understand what the needs are, figure out what the personality of your loved one is, because it's not only the skills that they need to have to come in and take care of it, they also have the right personality. The staff needs to have the right personality to take care of your loved one. So the different levels of care, there's companion care, and that's just hanging out and maybe reading books, gardening, running errands with you. There's homemaking services, and that's when we can kind of come in and do some light housekeeping, making sure that the laundry is done, the beds and linens are changed. It's especially important when you got somebody that's maybe on hospice or bedbound that's having some accidents, making sure the bed's changed. There's personal care, that's dressing, showering, toileting assist, a lot of those things. So there's different levels of care that you might get in the home. And for us, the more extensive the care is, the more personal it is, the more it does end up costing, unfortunately. So,
Sure. All right. So, well, what steps can a family take now to prepare for that potential future crisis?
I'd say be prepared. I would know, and I'd make sure you understand, does mom and dad have a long-term care policy, first of all? Was your mom or dad a veteran or a spouse of a veteran? It's understanding what your options are for paying once that thing happens, because a lot of times, again, our first interaction with the family is when it's an emergency, it's a crisis. Somebody has had some sort of medical emergency, like back to my mother-in-law, she had a pulmonary embolism. We decided that was the time she had to move. A lot of times it's a slip and fall. Mom's not safe in the house anymore. She needs to go someplace or get assistance. The hospitals are tasked, and Chris, you know this because we both sat on the hospital board. The hospital is tasked, once they discharge you from the hospital, they don't want you to come back unless something else is going on, because it costs the hospital. So what they want to make sure is you go home to a safe environment. So they'll recommend a lot of times you need to take mom or dad home with 24-hour care, or put them someplace at least for a period of time so that they're safe. So we're a good option at that point for a family when somebody's discharging from the hospital, when they come home, that we're there to assist them for a short period of time. Maybe it's a week or two, maybe just to give the family a break because maybe they're exhausted, maybe an overnight stay. Just have somebody that's there overnight with that family member to make sure they attend to their needs, whether they need to get changed or assistance to the bathroom, or make sure they're taking their medications in the middle of the night appropriately, and just helping out so the family can get some sleep. So, yeah. being prepared. So it's understanding what your options are and understanding when you do take them to the hospital, know what questions to ask the hospital when they do discharge and what your choices are.
Okay. Hey, something I wanted to follow up with is I know that you serve families out of their home for those that go homebound, but you also serve a lot of the senior housing developments in town, and then even like board and cares and convalescent homes, depending on the family wanting extra care. Because sometimes going into a convalescent home or board and care, those services, they're understaffed and they may not give the type of care, but it's the only place that you can place mom and dad. So
Right.
you can go into those places. You have the right, or to, if we hire you, you have the option or going into there and helping my family serve my loved one.
And we give options to families. You're right. A lot of times we'll backfill facilities or communities that don't have enough staffing on the floor is what we'll do. In some of the communities, there's a stigma for some of our seniors because they're that older generation. When you hear I'm going to an assisted living community, the stigma to that is in the old days, it's a very sterile place. It's not a friendly, welcoming place. It's, where you go to die, you're being housed there to die. I think so. Sometimes going to an independent senior community, and they're beautiful. A lot of them now these days, it's like going on a cruise ship, essentially. I mean, it's a community. It's a nice place you can go to. So there's a couple communities in town that we do something called shared care, which assists families that are in this community in the independent side. Because maybe mom's not really ready or dad's not really ready to go to the assisted living side. They want to live. They know they need some assistance, so maybe they move into one of these independent communities that has a dining room that gets them food in the evening and the breakfast and lunch, but they aren't safe enough to be by themselves. So we come in there and we do something called shared care, where we have staff come in and out throughout the day for a day rate, which is really inexpensive. It's affordable for them. And so Valencia Terrace and Citrus Place are two of the places here locally that one in Corona, one in Riverside, that we do this program in. So
wonderful.
That is awesome. My father actually was in Valencia Terrace, and I noticed
really?
that some of your caregivers, which I assume they're yours because you're the number one choice, it was just so nice because they were like, we would go in because we live locally, but they just had someone to be with them, just to hang out, make sure like if they need anything, if they're more in a fragile state, that they could, pick something up that fell or just be a companion, which is absolutely lovely. I wanted to jump in because we had some live viewers, and I wanted to share some of the comments that we have going on here. So, of course, we have the lovely Kathy Janey, who runs your La Sierra Chapel. Thank you for being here. And also Christina, who's there. Good morning. Good morning. And we also, my goodness, I'm going to have to read this to you. Karen Bushnell is a friend of mine from high school, actually. And so she's watching the show, and it doesn't all fit on the screen. So she said, long-term care is so expensive, lots of O's, and the insurance is also expensive. It'd be such a loss of money if your loved one passes suddenly. But really, how does anyone set aside $500,000 just in case? So long care term is needed. Something needs to be done to help support families in need of this kind of care. God bless you for your compassion and understanding the pain that these families face. So Ken, you really are that lifeline. So thank you so much. It
is expensive, but I'll tell you, you talk to a lot of financial planners and they will tell you, I'll just give you some case in points. 24-hour care in our area can run you about $4,000 or $5,000 a week for 24-hour care. Not very many families cannot afford that. I've had family members that have been on that for 3-4 years with long-term care benefits. And so when you look at that, she's right. It's not cheap, but if you do it early on, like Ann and I, when we started this business 15 years ago, we bought long-term care insurance. We decided we're not going to be in the position some of our clients are. So it's not cheap, but we made the commitment to do it because we want to make sure our kids, we have choices and our kids aren't going to be burdened with some of that stuff. And it preserves your estate as well and gives you choices. So
I love that. Kind of how Chris and his team want to help alleviate the burden on children with pre-need. Pre-need is basically buying a policy that pays for your funeral, so your kids don't have to even make a decision. They're like, okay, mom and dad laid it out. Like, it's so kind to do that for your family. We also had Kathy also mentioned, I apologize for sitting over you. Wonderful info, Ken. I went through this last year with my mom. She was up north and I had no help until I brought her down here with me. So yeah, you just really are the answer to prayer, which is great. We had one last question that had come in, and I wanted to read it off to you because I know neither of you seen it, but it came in.
Okay.
And then I will go off screen so you can answer it. But this was the question. When an adult child notices their aging parent struggling, what are some of the compassionate ways to approach the conversation about seeking help? Because that must be, it's really awkward to be like, hey, mom, we need to get somebody in here. Like it's part of their, their pride. So can you answer this question? I'll go off screen.
Yeah, I can. It's interesting. So one of our busiest days, our two busiest days of the year, are the day after Thanksgiving and the day after Christmas. Everybody goes visit mom and dad, and they go, oh my God, what's going on? I haven't seen mom in 4 months. I haven't seen dad in 5 months, and I had no idea. So I don't think it's one conversation. It's a series of conversations. Like I told you earlier with my mother-in-law, it literally was 4 or 5 times of visiting, being patient, walking through the process, having that conversation. Same thing with my parents. We literally had this conversation about moving for probably about 8 months or 9 months before they finally made that decision. So it's not one conversation. It's a series of conversation, just listening to them, making sure that they understand that, hey, look, it's not just for you, mom, it's for me. I want to make sure you're safe. I want to make sure that you're okay. And sometimes it's as little as just, it's amazing to me. Sometimes we'll get a call from a family. They'll go, hey, we need to have all this help. Sometimes you just start off with one visit a week, maybe a 4-hour visit to help mom maybe do some things so they get acclimated to having some assistance in the house. You'd be surprised some of the bonds that the care staff makes with those family members to where they go, hey, you know what? Mom really likes Susie. Matter of fact, one of our Rotarian friends, we've been taking care of his mom for probably about 2 years now. And the caregiver are like best friends. They talk about stuff. Yeah. Hey, you have no idea what they were talking about yesterday. So they become friends and they do stuff together, and it gives peace of mind to the family member. And then it gives some distraction, diversion, and some eyes on the ground for the family, I guess, that when they're not there, they can see. Because sometimes if they're there on a weekly basis, the caregiver can say, hey, look, something's up with mom right now. She's not acting her normal self. Maybe something's up. You might want to take her to the doctor. So there's some benefit to that too. So it's a series of conversations. It's not a one-off. It's just listening and being compassionate about it and just kind of raising your concerns and maybe making it a little bit about you in the sense that I want to make sure I feel good about you being safe, mom. So that's part of it. So.
I love that. It's awesome. We're having a little bit of feedback. So I don't know where that's coming from, so I apologize. But Ken I'm going to again go off screen, but I just wanted to jump in here. We're at the end of our show. If there is anything else that you feel like we didn't share about it, I mean, it's all about loving our parents, right? I mean, that's the whole reason. If we didn't love our parents, we wouldn't care, right? Yeah. They're being taken care of, that there's something going on, that we want to be there. But as people who are maybe in the next 20 years in that position, we have to think of how would we want to be treated, right? Like, what is the love and care? Like, I don't want my kids shipping me off or treating me disrespectfully. I'm like, I'm your mother, we have to realize we have to do unto others, right? Just like OGR, do unto others as you would have done to yourself, the golden rule.
That's right. Golden rule.
Yeah. So I appreciate your perspective because you're boots on the ground, serving families every day, caring for our parents in general. So I want to thank you, Ken, for that. But I'm going to go off screen and let the two of you wrap up the show. But again, just as a little reminder, everyone, our next show is on June 20th. Stay tuned for an exciting topic. They're always exciting. Right, Chris?
That's right. Absolutely. We're going to get prepared for it. Summertime is right around the corner. It's Memorial Day weekend is the beginning of the summer season. So we're going to probably bring some topics maybe about summertime and living life to the fullest and having at it before you have to really prepare for the inevitable.
Right.
Unexpected, inevitable.
That's right. Living every day like it's our last, right?
Yeah.
Serving others, being a blessing. I think that is kind of the thread through this show, Ken, is that Chris really wants to show how to deal with things not only in the present but the future. And I think we're taking the stigma off of what inevitably happens to everyone, right? We all pass away someday. So Ken, thank you for softening it on the way. And Chris, thank you for taking care of us when we've we've crossed the finish line. So I'm going to go off, and you guys can finish up. And Ken, please again share with us any last thoughts you have about again how to have those conversations and things to think about when you're ready to make that decision to help your parents in this.
I think the last thing I would say is just modeling. I will tell you that I know there's something mentioned earlier. I think it's important that if you treat your parents well and your children see that you treat your parents well when they're going through that crisis and stuff, you can maybe expect that same level of treatment that you get when it comes to your turn to be taken care of by your family and kids. So I think I remind family members all the time that ones that are treating their parents a little bit poorly, hey, look, your kids are watching, you know, you don't want to be in that position. So just treat people in a nice way and make sure you're kind and loving to your parents, because it's a difficult time when you start losing your independence, and we're all going to be there at some point in time. So
absolutely. I fully agree. I appreciate that perspective and those points, Ken, because I'd have to say, you know, with being a caregiver for my wife for those 4 years, it takes a lot. And for families to take care of their loved ones, and you still have to run your household with kids and you have to run your businesses, having a service like Ken's Synergy Healthcare really does relieve that burden. And you can still function, and it really would take a lot off. And I would have said, I would have most likely have used it if I didn't have the support of my own family, of my sister, my mom, and all my other close friends helping me with my wife. I would have definitely had to have been in that boat over the last, couple months of her life that she was with us. But I know there's a point in time that we're all going to need your services. And unfortunately, we're going to need my services. And the important thing is to talk about it. Nobody ever wants to talk about services for their parents when they're getting elderly. No one ever wants to talk about death either. But these are important conversations that need to be taken. And like you said, the holidays, birthdays, gatherings, those are topics. Just bring them up in conversation, because it's when you start bringing it up and talking, it starts softening the blow. I've talked to my mom about it, and my mom says, I'm not going to be one of those old people that are going to try to live. She goes, I've taken her to Valencia Terrace, and she's seen us down there, all the local homes here. And some of her friends have already moved in there. She goes, man, they look like they're having a great time. And they do. They have so many wonderful services. I've seen where a husband and wife, they've lost their spouse and they're living at home, and their demeanor starts to go downhill. But when they move into one of these senior complexes,
they end up cocooning is what they do.
Spark a life, don't they? Yeah, they kind of come alive because they're interacting with people again, and it stimulates their mind. So really, it's an important part of life, is getting that connection with other people, because that's what keeps you youthful and keeps you going when you have that interaction. If you stay home by yourself and you cocoon yourself and you isolate yourself, that's a doom for disaster. And so I definitely would recommend Ken services, getting your parents out there, talking about the long-term care when it's needed. And it's here. We have it here in our community here in Corona Norco, and there's other agencies in Southern California if you're not here in Corona Norco area. But if you do, Ken at Synergy Healthcare and his family and all his staff do an amazing job. So Ken, any last words before we head out today?
That's it. I think we need to start a new podcast about dialogues about life, maybe. Living life.
There we go.
There we go.
And that's why we talk about this, because we want that transition. We want to live life. And so that's why we talk about these things, take the stigma out of it, so then you can live life. So when an accident occurs or when death occurs, then you're ready and prepared for it.
Exactly. Words well said. So
thank you very much for coming out. I truly appreciate your friendship and your love as a Rotarian and giving back to our community. So thank you for being a guest here today, and I look forward to getting together in the weeks to come.
Yep. Thank you, sir. Good seeing you. Thanks for having me today.
You're very welcome, Ken. Have a great weekend. And like I said earlier, I don't want to say happy Memorial Day, but have a safe and blessed Memorial Day weekend. And if you do see a veteran out there, give them your praise of thanking them for their service that they dedicate and put their life on the line, so we have our freedoms here in America today. Thank you.
Thanks.